Today we will continue the discourse on the abodes of noble ones, Ariyavasa, from Anguttara Nikaya Dasaka Nipada. Ariyavasa means the abode of noble ones. All previous Buddhas, Kassapa Buddha, Konakamana Buddha, Kakusanda Buddha, Visabu Buddha, Sikhi Buddha, Vipassi Buddha, and noble ones dwelt in that Ariyavasa. And so too, our present Gautama Buddha and his noble disciple in the current holy order have been dwelling in that Ariyavasa. Future Arimidya Buddhas and his disciple we dwell in that Ariyavasa. So Ariyavasa refers to important qualities required to become a noble ones. Each and every noble ones dwells in that Ariyavasa, which is well guarded from the dangers of torturous cycle of samsara. So the abode of noble ones provides us refuge from all kinds of potential danger in samsara. To help us attain such great refuge, Buddha delivered this sermon. So we have to deliver this sermon on behalf of the Buddha, keeping it in mind. Please listen to this talk attentively. There are 10 Ariyavasa Dhamma. Number 3 is Satarakina Cetasa Samanagata Hoti. Bhikkhu practitioner is endowed with a mind guarded by sati, mindfulness. So bhikkhus, yogis must have sati at the six endos. Bhikkhu yogis must have sati at the five khandhas or the four great elements. When going, standing, sleeping, awakening, yogi is endowed with knowledge and vision. So when we have sati, when we practice satipatthana meditation, we need to discover the nama rupa in terms of their characteristics, function, and manifestation. When you know the rising and falling of the abdomen, you can discover the characteristics, function, and manifestation of the Vayu Dhatu. Pressure, tightness, or looseness is the characteristics of air elements. inclining, leaning, or moving its function. Propulsion in any direction it wants is the manifestations of Vayodhatu air elements. So these are the features of air elements for meditators to discern, to discover. Another phenomena that would be obvious while noting the sitting, touching, or rising and falling of the abdomen is unpleasant sensation. During practicing sitting meditation, you feel heat, cramp, pain, etc. Regarding what to do with it, Buddha mentioned in this like this. Dukkha vedana vidya mano, dukkha vedana vidya miti pajanati. A bhikkhu experiencing unpleasant feeling is well aware I experience unpleasant feeling. So how we have to note the feeling? Buddha mentioned to be aware of feeling by noting it. Vedayami, I experience. Like Gichami, I go. Vedayami is the verb, the first person singular, Amma-yoga, and its grammatical construction implies I as the subject. So this sentence has to be translated as I experience. If this were to be dismissed as mistranslation, it would be contrary to the Buddha's teaching. People rarely say, I experience heat. They say, it's hot. So Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw instructs his yogis to make a mental note of their sensation accordingly, like hot, hot, or cold, cold, pain, pain, and so on. If they follow the instruction, they will become aware of the feeling as feeling instead of as I or mine. This fact is very evident. Dukkha vedana is the experience of undesirable contact. Dukkham anatta bhavanu bhavanu lakhanam. So when you note stiff or hot, for example, you can be clearly aware of the unpleasant experience. No doubt you are aware of the feeling in terms of its characteristics. The characteristics is the characteristics of unpleasant experience. The function is sambhyutanam milapana rasam. It is to make it concomitant with the. So the function of unpleasant feeling is to make it concomitant with the. Concomitance here refers consciousness and mental factors that are associated with it. To understand easily, you understand it makes the mind weak and wither. It is very evident when we feel sick, when we are well, both mind and body are energetic and active. But when we get sick, the mind also gets weak and withers. In the same way, when the body feels stiff, hurt, or ache, the mind becomes weak also. So the unpleasant sensation evidently makes the mind wither. This is a function of the unpleasant feeling known to meditators. So you remember making the mind weak and wither is the function of unpleasant feeling. And manifestation. Kaika bada pichupatanam. The manifestations of unpleasant feeling is physical discomfort. Discomfort is hard to bear. It is inflicting. It's like a thorn prickling in the flesh. So the unpleasant feeling is manifested to a yogi as discomfort. A yogi becomes aware of unpleasant feeling in terms of its characteristic, function, and manifestation. And also when yogi try to be aware everything, every feeling, yogi can discover the characteristic functions and manifestation of pleasant feeling and neutral feelings. So these three features of unpleasant feelings are not what to memorize or to recite. What yogi have to do? Yogi have to be aware of this feeling by observing them concurrently. Yogi have to be very careful, very mindful to capture this feeling clearly. Sometimes yogi may be aware of his characteristics, but other times the functions and manifestation depending on what obvious to yogi. So unpleasant feeling, what are the characteristics, Yuri? Characteristics of unpleasant feeling is unpleasant experience, and the functions of unpleasant feeling is making your mind weak and wither. This is a function. What is the manifestation? Discomfort of the body. Can you follow me? Unpleasant experience is the characteristics of unpleasant feeling, making the mind weak and wither is the functions of unpleasant feeling. Discomfort in the body is a manifestation of unpleasant feeling. These are the features of physical pain for a yogi to discern. So when you would note pain, you need to understand, you need to discern one of them. Characteristics is unpleasant experience, or your mind, the unpleasant feeling make your mind weak and wither. It's a function, and discomfort in the body is the manifestation. So any one of these you need to understand. Another phenomena is the Citta consciousness. So what is the characteristics of Citta? Aramana Vijanana Lakanan, to be conscious. To be conscious of the sense object is the characteristics of Citta. So you will become aware of every consciousness. When you note thoughts that arise in yogi. So what you find, the thoughts, you will find the thought arise moment by moment, picking up the objects after another constantly. What the mind like a buzz, the buzz picking up one grain after another. When you not seeing, how do you understand? Seeing. You can find Jaku Vinyana, seeing consciousness is picking up the visible object. So when you're not hearing consciousness, picking up the sound. When you're not smelling consciousness, picking up the odor. When you're not eating, tongue consciousness, picking up the taste. And when you're not touching, body consciousness, picking up the tangible object. When you're not thinking, or knowing, the mind consciousness, picking up the Dhamma object. So the characteristics of consciousness is to be conscious of its corresponding object. No matter whether you are highly educated or illiterate, young or old, you will be aware of its nature if you are mindful of your thoughts concurrently. So some yogis also, although less educated, can report their discernment of Chaita more comprehensively than the educated people. Some yogi, even they are very young, like 11 or 12, if they be aware, they can discern the nature of mind clearly. And the functions of consciousness. The functions of consciousness is to lead its concomitant, as if we are urging, hey, oh my friends, follow me. consciousness is urging. So what is the functions of consciousness citta? Leading is concomitance, like a forerunner is the functions of citta. When people work together, there is someone who leads everybody else. In the same way, the consciousness plays a leading role among all its concomitant mental factors, greed, hatred, jealousy, etc. In an unwholesome case, or confidence, mindfulness, loving kindness, compassion, etc. in a wholesome case. So these functions of consciousness is quite evident. And what is the manifestation? The manifestations of citta is patisandhi pichupatthana or santahana pichupatthana. It is manifested as a mental chain. The consciousness is manifested as a chain of preceding and succeeding mental states. So when yogi knows one kind of consciousness, he would find it disappear and be succeeded immediately by another kind of citta. Then yogi would realize the citta is a mental chain that keeps going on in connection with its preceding mental states. So when yogi notes one thought moment, yogi find it disappear, but another thought moment replace it immediately. So the manifestations of citta is the chain of preceding and succeeding thoughts. So you understand yogi need to discern the characteristics, function, and manifestations of three kinds of phenomena. First one, Vayodhatu, air elements. It is a physical phenomena. Feeling and consciousness, two mental phenomena, which are most likely to be obvious when you observe rising and falling of the abdomen. And also, yogi should discern all the remaining psychophysical phenomena. Yogi should discern every arising namarupa. Now we will continue on how yogi starts to distinguish between nama and rupa. At the moment of seeing, yogi try to be mindful of seeing. Yogi notes seeing. When your focusing power getting strengthened, you can capture the eye sensitivity, visible form, and seeing consciousness. So yogi can discern the rupa dukkha and nama dukkha. When you know seeing, what sitya you can capture, dukkha, truth of suffering. When you know seeing retina and visible form, they appear immediately and disappear immediately. So it is called rupa dukkha. As soon as you know seeing consciousness arise and seeing consciousness is what sitcha, nama dukkha. So at the moment of seeing, the eye sensitivity and visible form are rupa dukkha, physical truth of suffering, and seeing consciousness is nama dukkha, cycle, truth of suffering. So can you follow me, Rudy? At the moment of seeing, eye sensitivity and visible form are rupa dukkha. Seeing consciousness is nama dukkha. So why we have to say dukkha? As soon as we see, seeing, it appear and disappear. So appearing and disappearing is called suffering. Suffering. So when you note hearing, what phenomena you capture, dukkha. So what dukkha? Eardrums and sound wave are rupa dukkha. Hearing consciousness is nama or rupa, nama dukkha. So yogi can capture the eardrum, sound wave, or hearing consciousness. And as soon as you know the hearing, it disappear or not disappear? Disappear. When it is disappear, it is called suffering or pleasant or unpleasant, dukkha. So can you follow me, Rudy? At the moment of hearing, ear sensitivity and sound wave are rupa dukkha. Hearing consciousness is nama dukkha. Again, at the moment of hearing, ear sensitivity and sound wave are rupa dukkha. Hearing consciousness is nama dukkha. So when you know seeing, hearing, what truth you can discover, dukkha. Why it is called dukkha, truth of suffering? Because disappearing. It disappearing continuously. So when you know smelling, what phenomena you capture no sensitivity and odor. No sensitivity and odor and rupa. They arise and disappear. So it is called dukkha, truth of suffering. And smelling consciousness is nama or rupa. Nama dukkha. Smelling consciousness at the moment of smelling, nose consciousness, nose sensitivity and odor of rupa dukkha, and smelling consciousness is nama dukkha. So when you eat, how do you note eating or tasting? So what phenomena you capture? Tongue sensitivity and the taste. Tongue sensitivity and taste are rupa or nama. Rupa. As soon as you chewing or tasting, it disappear or not disappear. Disappear. When it disappear, it is dukkha or sukha. Dukkha. As is tasting consciousness is nama or dukkha. Nama or rupa, nama. So nama, as soon as you know tasting, it disappear or not disappear. When it disappear, it is sukha or dukkha. Dukkha, yeah. So we have to understand when eating, at the moment of eating, the tongue sensitivity and taste are rupa dukkha sicca, and tongue tasting consciousness is nama dukkha sicca. So at the moment of touching, when you sit, you know touching, sitting, touching, sitting, touching, and what phenomena you capture? The body and tangible object. The body and tangible objects are rupa or nama. Rupa. As soon as you notice it touching, it disappear or not disappear. Disappear. When it disappear, it is sukha or dukkha. Dukkha. And touching consciousness also arise, and you know touching, it disappear or not disappear. Disappear. When it disappear, it is sukha or dukkha. Dukkha. So we have to understand in this way, when touching, at the moment of touching, the body and the tangible object are rupa dukkha sicca. Touching consciousness is nama dukkha sicca. So in this way, yogi become aware of nama rupa separately. Separately. If you are focusing power, getting strengthened. And if your mindfulness and focusing power getting strengthened, you can be aware of nama and rupa phenomena separately. So when you know touching, the range of touching is very extensive because it can take place at any part of the body. So the awareness of bodily behavior, sometimes you bending, sometimes you stretching, moving, going, and so on, is considered the awareness of touching. So when you note bending your arm, what phenomena you capture? You capture the tension or movement or pressure. They are rupa dukkha sicca, and touching consciousness and awareness of the touching is nama. So when you practice walking meditation, you note walking, or going. What phenomena you capture? You capture the vayo dhatu, that is tension or movement or pressure, that is rupa or nama. Rupa, yeah. The tension or movement or pressure is rupa, yeah, dukkha sicca, and touching consciousness and awareness of this movement is nama. Nama. So rupa and nama dukkha sicca, you can be aware when you practice walking meditation. And when you note the rising and falling of the abdomen, you capture the vayo dhatu, you capture the tension, the movement. That is rupa or nama. Rupa dukkha sicca, as soon as you note rising, the movement disappear or not disappear. Disappear. When it disappear, it is sukha or dukkha. Dukkha. And touching consciousness and awareness of that movement is rupa or nama. As soon as you know touching, the touching consciousness disappear or not disappear. When it disappear, it is called sukha or dukkha. Dukkha. And when you know falling, You can capture the Vayodhatu or air elements, and you feel looseness and constriction. So looseness and constriction is rupa or nama. Rupa. So as soon as you note that looseness and movement disappear or not disappear, when it disappear, it is called sukha or dukkha. Dukkha, touching consciousness and awareness of the looseness is rupa or nama. Nama. So when you know the rising and falling of the abdomen, if your concentration getting strengthened, you can discover nama and rupa separately. Separately. So when you practice walking meditation, within one step, you can discover many elements. 4 elements you can discover. You can be aware distinctively, lifting, pushing forward, dropping, and pressing. Lifting, pushing forward, dropping, and pressing. So when you lift, you can be aware of lightness. Lightness. So lightness is the nature of fire elements. Lightness is what elements? Fire. Fire elements. When you pushing forward, moving it forward, and you may be aware of the motion, tension, and pressure. Motion and tension and pressure is air elements. When you drop it down, you may be aware of the heaviness. Heaviness is here water elements. Water elements. When you press the floor, and you can be aware of hardness. Hardness is what elements? Earth elements. So within one step, how many elements you can discover? 4 elements. Yeah. So in this way, every time you note any bodily behavior, you can distinguish between nama and rupa. Rupa is non-cognitive body and nama is cognitive mind. You can discover when you pay attention meticulously. So yogi can see nama and rupa separately. That means insight into nama rupa paricita jnana. That is the knowledge. And Buddha compared the nama and rupa to a certain kinds of gem called veluriya, with a string put through it. Nowadays, some people wear a ring with this kinds of gem. Suppose for example, a string, the color is blue or yellow or red or white in color. So string is put through the veluriya bead. Then a man with good eyesight can see the string separately from the gem. So in the same way, yogi, now his mind is very sharp, his focusing power is strengthened, and yogi can see clearly the mind separately from the body. So in this simile, the body is compared to the gem, and the mind is compared to the string. So when you note the rising and falling of the abdomen, you can distinctively see the noting mind separately from the abdomen. Abdomen. So this example is very good because it helps reflect a yogi's own experience. You continue to practice meditation and then your concentration getting strengthened. A yogi noting the present phenomena concurrently. A yogi becomes aware of cause and effect. So in the beginning, it takes some efforts to note the bending or stretching of the arm. In due course of time, however, yogi will see the desire to bend or desire to stretch before you do something. So desire or wanting mind appear first. Then you are supposed to note that desire before you actually bend, wanted to bend. So yogi will realize that it is the desire to bend or desire to stretch that generate the actions of bending or stretching. So it is true, our voluntary actions are all about the interaction of nama and rupa. In other words, they are all about cause and effect. But have nothing to do with atta, self or soul. Suppose now you bend and stretch your fingers. Can you capture the desire to bend? If you cannot capture, it is because you are not trained in the development of mindfulness and concentration. But when you well trained, if you have a good training in the mindfulness, you can capture the desire or intention. So it comes first. So if yogi want to be aware of it, the mind that generates the voluntary actions, yogi have to put effort in the development of mindfulness. Yogi can be aware of the mind as the cause of all voluntary actions. So with the development of mindfulness, with the development of focusing power, yogi will realize the eye sensitivity and visible object, their physical phenomena, rupa, as necessary condition for seeing consciousness. And eardrums and the sound wave for hearing consciousness and so on. So in this way, yogi will be well aware of the causal relationship between nama and rupa. There is the insight into causality of nama and rupa, Pichaya Parigha Jnana. So the first vipassana insight is called Contemplative Insight, Samasana Jnana. The insight characterized by the contemplations of three universal characteristics: nature, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So when your jnana into causality matures, you will see nama and rupa phenomena start to arise and come to an end, indicating that they are arising and vanishing. Then yogi will happen to contemplate that all the phenomena are impermanent. So in this way, there arises the insight into impermanence, It is samasana jnana. So in this regard, commentaries mention three things for the yogi to learn. Anicca, what is impermanent, what the impermanents are. Aniccata, what the characteristics of impermanent is. Anicca nupassana, what the contemplations of impermanent is. Three things yogi need to understand. So the commentary defines what are anicca. What is anicca? Aniccanti kanda pinchaka. What is anicca? Anicca is the five aggregates. Five aggregates is impermanent. Impermanence are five aggregates. So the Namarupa or psychophysical phenomena are classified into five aggregates, which are arising and vanishing constantly. So impermanence are those aggregates. We need to remember impermanence are five aggregates of Nama and Rupa. And what is the characteristics of impermanence? The characteristics of impermanence is described as Hotva Abhavakaro Anicca Lakkhana. Disappearance after having arisen is the characteristics of impermanence. So people have their own characteristics that indicate who they are. In the same way, the impermanence has its own characteristics. What is the characteristics of impermanence? Disappearance. Disappearance after having arisen. So the Namarupa having been nowhere, now come to existence and then passing away into non-existence right afterwards. So that is anicca lakkhana, the characteristics of impermanence. So if the things does not arise at all, it cannot be considered impermanent, like Nibbana and Piñati, conceptual things, and nor can anything be regarded as impermanence if it arises and exists forever. In reality, there is no such things. Any phenomena that arises always vanish right afterwards. So impermanence means the immediate disappearance of something that has arisen. So that is the characteristics of impermanence, anicca lakkhana. So the characteristics of impermanence is disappearance after having arisen. It is necessary to understand the characteristics of impermanence from our experience. We can empirically realize it only when we see nama, rupa disappear, when we observe them concurrently. Only such empirical knowledge can be considered the insight into impermanence. So here we have to understand, while observing, we need to understand this nature. So having empirically seen the Namarupa psychophysical phenomena as impermanent, yogi will also see them suffering and non-self. So remember, through the insight into impermanence, suffering and non-self come to the light. When this insight, characterized by contemplations of impermanence, suffering, and non-self, matures enough, yogi would stop contemplating. Yogi stop reflecting and just continue to be mindful. Then yogi's mindfulness gain momentum. A yogi can clearly see Namarupa arising and vanishing every time yogi observe them. This signifies the insight into arising and vanishing. At this stage, yogi would have remarkable experience. Yogi experience luminous states, gratifications and rapture, calmness and tranquility, faith and confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, teachers and practice. So yogi mindfulness will become efficient so remarkably that you do not even think that any phenomenon escape your observation. At this stage, yogi would feel so elated with joyful experience that you may even mistake this insight for the experience of Megaphala and Nibbana. So it is important, yogi need to continue to practice, because this jnana is so enjoyable and a lot of rapture there. A yogi should note and overcome these delightful and significant experience. A yogi will transcend them. A yogi will find all phenomena vanishing at every time you observe them. Then, although you are observing the rising and falling, you will no longer see the shape or form of the abdomen or the entire body. And all yogi can see will be namarupa and their constant disappearance. You would even find not only the noted object, but also the noting mind itself disappearing consecutively. Whatever you note, you would find the noted object and the noting mind disappear successively. When you walk by noting, lifting the foot, moving it forward, putting it down, all you will see is only the constant disappearance of phenomena without having any sense of the form or shape of the food and the body. And then the constant disappearance of nama and rupa becomes scary and frightening to yogis. That means yogi develop the insight into the scary aspect. And then yogi would develop the insight into the faulty aspect. As a result, you would feel fed up with them, meaning you develop insight into their disenchanting aspect. Then you wish to be liberated from them, and you would thus develop the insight characterized by aspiration to liberation. So driven by such aspiration, yogi would put further effort in the development of mindfulness and contemplations of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. That means yogi develop the insight characterized by re-contemplation. This insight in turn leads to the insight characterized by equanimity, which is very unique and remarkable. At this stage, yogi become mindful of one phenomenon after another successively and effortlessly for a long time. And the 10th stage of Vipassana insight is called Anuloma, conformity insight, which is immediately followed by path enlightenment. So according to the Ariyavasa Sutta, be mindful constantly and yogi, we reach the final goal. Final goal. So we have to stop our discourse for today by practicing Vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the six senses. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future.